Okay. All right, let's call the meeting to order. And if you notice, we have a few people here tonight. Hopefully it'll improve as we get going. If not, everything's recorded and we have a video, so people who missed it can always watch it at home, unfortunately. First thing, of course, is the minutes. I did put some hard copies back there with the sign-up sheets. If anybody did want a hard copy, there you go. Even though everybody said they did, I did put a couple back there. So, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from April? Anybody? Maybe.
Motion. I'll make a motion.
Okay, Chad made the motion. All right, any discussion? Anything needing correction? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
I move to accept.
Very good. Anybody opposed? Oops, I guess everybody else is for. So I guess the minutes have passed unanimously.
Once again.
All right, now we only have the police report, and I wish I had known, but they bailed like literally at 6 o'clock today. I would have sent the statistics at least. We've got a few local problems I would love to talk to them about that are going on some local streets, but we'll get to it. So I guess without much ado, let's, James, I guess you're up.
Okay. Where do you want me to stand?
Anywhere in here is fine.
Okay.
And yeah, the owl will pick you up.
Do what?
The owl will focus on you.
It'll catch me. Okay.
Yeah, does a good job.
Well, hey everybody, my name is James Sudano. I'm an engineer on the City's Vision Zero program. Just to provide like a little update on our program and kind of what we do, give you guys a little background, and then we'll focus in on some local areas in your CAC as well. Next slide.
You'll come up just a little closer.
Yeah,
So
sure.
we'll hear your voice.
Yep.
Don't want you to block.
And I'll talk a little louder, sorry.
The audience. So everybody's on the back row here.
For sure, yeah. So the agenda for today, we're going to go through a couple things. We'll touch on what Vision Zero is. Show of hands, has anybody heard of it before? One, that's it. Two. So we'll touch on what that is, perfect. Those slides won't be useless. We'll talk about Vision Zero program's responsibilities, what we do, current conditions, which by that we mean kind of like what the state of crashes within the city of Raleigh are now. We'll look at what we are shooting to do to accomplish Vision Zero in the city of Raleigh. We'll look at some things we've already accomplished because we haven't been sitting around on our hands for the past couple of years. And then lastly, we'll look at kind of the next steps. So next slide, please. So Vision Zero, there's a whole lot of words here. It essentially boils down to we want to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on the road that occur through crashes. Next slide. So this is our team. We've got Jed Neffenegger. He's actually over our entire traffic engineering program. Sean Driscoll's our Vision Zero program head. Myself, James Sudano. Dustin Bryce, he manages our streetlight program, which is largely done through Duke Energy. And then Shane McCarthy is another engineer on our program. We have a lot of external partners as well and internal. Some of the big ones, we work a lot with our signals group. They help to manage the signals within Raleigh traffic signals. And then our signs and markings group, they help to basically maintain all of the signs you see on the roadway, the pavement markings. So those are two huge internal groups. And then NCDOT, actually, I see their symbol there, but basically they're our biggest external partner. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of what they do to help us in the city. Next slide, please. So the three white bullets you see here, these are kind of our three buckets, I'd say. This top one, general safety improvements, that's where we spend most of our time and most of our energy goes into that bucket. So what that consists of is doing a lot of like data analysis, a lot of crash analysis. So we'll pull crashes from the state's website and we'll analyze what's going on at a location and try to determine what we can do to make it better. We'll go through an example later. We also will do signal studies. So, you know, I'm sure some of you guys may have called the city before and said, hey, can I get a traffic signal here? It happens all the time. People always want traffic signals. So we help to manage that. And then we do a lot of speed studies too. Our second bucket there, school zone management. We are in charge of basically the infrastructure on public roads around schools. We'll go in, we'll install signs, we'll update signs, we'll install markings, and then we'll talk through, well, actually this written here on the screen, there's a few other things we look at, which are like, we look at always stops, RRFB, which we'll talk about what that is, but it's a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. It's essentially like flashing lights on signs that you could press a button and they'll light up. Raised crosswalks, we recently got into that, and we look at sidewalk gaps. We also work to lower speed limits with the neighborhood traffic management program, which is our traffic calming group. That's the group Larry does not like, apparently. The streetlight program, that's also our third bucket. And like I said, Dustin is over that, Dustin Bryce, and all that is working to get lighting out there at night. Next slide, please. So that first bucket, like we talked about, we're basically looking for problems and trying to fix it. It's that simple. Looking for safety problems, trying to find something that makes it better. Two examples of that on the right here. If anybody's ever driven out south of NC State, out off Avon Ferry Road, you'll see people crossing the Avon Ferry Road all the time. It's 5 lanes and at high speed, but you'll see kids crossing wherever they want. So we worked with NCDOT to install 2 pedestrian hybrid beacons. I'm sorry, there's so many acronyms in this presentation, it's hard to not use them. But that top picture shows a hawk or PHB. There's multiple names. It gets kind of cumbersome. But we installed 2 of those on Avon Ferry Road. If you drive through, you'll see those, and kids actually use it. That second picture.
So what is the hawk?
A hawk, it's like it's essentially a pedestrian signal, but the heads look a little different. So I'm sure you've seen one before. If you drive out Avon Ferry, you'll see that it's got like 3 little lights. The signal head does.
Like caution lights?
Well, so what they do is they like flash yellow to warn you, and then they start flashing red, and they go solid red, and then you have to stop the stop bar. It gets driver's attention a little better than a pedestrian signal. That second picture is 5 points. I'm sure we're all familiar with 5 points. We had a really bad crash pattern. People headed northbound, would go off the road, hit the church, at least one person died. So we worked with NCDOT again, our really good partner, to install some flashing chevrons. And we've actually seen a huge drop off in crashes since then. So since 2013, yeah, we've worked with NCDOT to install or actually fund more than 55 projects totaling more than $20 million. Like I said, they're a huge partner of ours. I don't want to short sell them. And then since 2022, when we actually kind of rebranded our program from traffic safety to Vision Zero, we've secured about 11 million, which is about half that. So next slide, please. So yeah, school zones. So this is also a big area. We get a lot of concerns coming from citizens, from parents, from schools themselves. And we try to work to solve the safety issues that they bring up. There are approximately 130 schools in the city limits. I wouldn't say that's an exact number. The private list is always changing, so it's kind of fluctuating at any given time. On the right here, you can see an example of some improvements we did down at Lacey Elementary School in the past couple of years. There was this crossing, it's 3 lanes. A lot of kids were using it, and we were getting buses turning left. There's a road right off to your left right there. They turn left, and it would block when kids were crossing. So you'd have a through vehicle that couldn't see kids. So what we did is we worked to install these RFBs. If you press the button on either side, it'll flash both sides lights, so somebody can be aware that someone's crossing, the kid is crossing. And then we also used those little yellow sticks you see are called flexible delineators, and we use those to block out that center turn lane. It wasn't being used for anything. So beyond RFBs, we also do traffic signals at schools. We've got quite a few of those in the works. Multi-way stop conversions, also called always stops, speed limit reductions, and then signs and pavement markings are like that's something we use pretty much everywhere. Next slide, please. I'm sorry.
Just a quick comment for
Sure.
the middle of this. Traffic calming. You folks need to get a whole lot more white reflective painting.
Yeah.
And get some of those metal signs out of the middle of the roadway that cars keep running right straight into.
On the medians?
Yeah, it's on the meeting.
Like
Yeah.
on Hardwood Road over here.
Okay,
Those signs, they got, metal posts like go with stop signs.
yeah,
And then they put a yellow reflective sign on top of that. And people are just running into them every week.
gotcha,
You need
yeah.
to have more forgiving where it will go down or something, rubberized or something. We've been talking to, Will Shoemaker.
Yeah,
about
I
this.
know Will. I'll give him a hard time
Yeah,
when I get back tomorrow.
we get lots of complaints about the traffic on.
Yeah, when you head out, just go down hard.
Is it what?
Just go down hard.
Okay, on the way back home, I'll go down hard. I'll take a look. But no, good comment. I appreciate that. So again, apologies for the acronyms. We have so many in engineering. Honestly, I get kind of tired of saying like these different RRFB. That's kind of a crazy. It's not a very attractive acronym. But so what this is actually a little bit more in depth what that rectangular rapid flashing beacon that I talked about earlier is. Again, if you want to think of it simplistically, it's just flashing lights on the signs. It might not sound like a really, I don't know, inventive like countermeasure, but a lot goes into getting these installed, and they can be pretty expensive too. So when people hit them, or when people request them, a lot goes into it, I guess is what I'll say. So we are really diving into this countermeasure recently, especially at schools that listed the bottom: Martinville, Lacey, Oberlin, Conn Elementary, Cardinal Gibbons, and Jeffreys Grove. Those are just a few locations that we're looking at installing RFBs at existing crosswalks. Next slide. Street lighting. I like to think of this countermeasure as a, and when I say countermeasure, that's basically a word to say it's a type of infrastructure we can install to fix a problem. So this countermeasure is, I think, very underrated, and I think a lot of you would agree. Street lighting is something where most of us probably aren't driving at night. I don't think any of you guys probably are. I don't. But when I do, you'll notice when you're in dark areas, it's really hard to see. You won't notice that during the daytime. So Dustin Bryce, our street light program manager, he works really hard to get street lights installed, and they have a really big impact. So you can see there that stat. They reduce nighttime injury pedestrian crashes at intersections by up to 42%. And then when you put it in perspective of the actual fatalities in Raleigh, 90% of our pedestrian fatalities are occurring at night. So 90%, that's a pretty high number. So this countermeasure alone is going to be instrumental in getting to Vision Zero. Next slide, please. So current conditions. So this is a map that just shows past couple of years where we're seeing our fatalities occur. And then some of these stats are pretty interesting. So 1/3 of fatalities involved a pedestrian. That stays pretty stagnant throughout the years. It doesn't really change very much. We typically see about 1/3 of our fatalities being pedestrians. About half are drivers. And then we also do see a pretty disproportionate number of our fatalities, unfortunately, involve Black people. So it's a really unfortunate thing that they are disproportionately hurt by this public health epidemic. We'll call it what it is. Next slide, please. So a little bit more diving into these stats. We had so in 2021, well, 2020 is when COVID hit. 2021, we saw 38 fatalities. In 2022, we had an unprecedented spike in fatalities to 64. So we've stayed pretty even at around 40. And in fact, this year, I think we're on track for around 40. But again, 2022, we saw 64. We don't really have an exact explanation for why, and we talked to RPD about it. We talked to them a lot. We don't know if it's, there was a lot more speeding on the roads during COVID when the roads were empty. Not really sure, but yeah, that was a really interesting but sad thing that happened in 2022. As far as location goes, like I said, CDOT is our partner. We actually see most fatalities occurring on their roads. So of the 2024, we had 40. So yeah, 40. 29 occurred on NCDOT maintained roadways. We had 1 on a private property, and then 10 were on city property or city maintained roads. So like I said, they're a big partner, and they have stepped up to the plate though when we've gone to them for help or for money. And then at the bottom, we got crash type. Next slide, please. So this is where we're at now in terms of where our traffic safety or Vision Zero program is at. What we currently do, it's kind of a proactive reactive mix. We have a list called the potentially hazardous list that NCDOT populates. It helps us to prioritize locations to look at and find solutions at those locations. It uses crash data to create like it's called a crash warrant, but basically it helps us to prioritize the locations we look at. We also evaluate all fatal crashes. We look at high profile crashes as they come, or ones that involve serious injuries. We don't look at all those, but we try to look at as many as we can. Citizen inquiries, we get a lot of citizen inquiries. Trust me, we get a lot from all over the city, 200 plus per year just for our group. And we have a whole bunch of staff and operations that get ones that we don't even hear about. I will say sometimes we find we hear some really good stuff from people. They'll bring up issues we didn't know about, issues we weren't aware of. And then media inquiries, occasionally we'll get questions from the media, have to do an interview. So basically what we do is we take all of our analysis, our crash data, and we look at priority, we look at our feasibility, and then we really ultimately have to determine, is funding something that we should pursue for a fix? Is it going to be feasible? Are we going to be able to is it going to compete for funding well? So it's a lot of our funding source, our main one is scored on a benefit to cost ratio. So we have to really keep our costs low and make sure we're shooting for something that's going to be effective. Next slide, please. So these are our funding sources, speaking of that. Again, kind of our biggest amount of money comes from NCDOT via that top bullet, spot safety. So these are projects that fall under $400,000. They have to have a really good benefit. They have to really be effective, but they can't cost very much. So that's kind of it can be a tough thing to achieve sometimes, but we managed to get a lot of money out of that program. Lately, it's been getting tougher because even traffic signals are we're having quotes come in at above $400,000 for one traffic signal. So that's just to put that in perspective, that cap right there. It's kind of hard to achieve at times.
Did you say one signal?
Yes, correct. Correct. Yep. So contractors have a lot of work right now, and it can be very expensive. I'll just put it that way. So federal dollars, there's been a lot of that lately. We can go for projects over 400,000. We can go for projects that are very high dollar threshold. The problem is they're very, very, very slow to deliver. So much so that I think I've been here 5 years. We may have had one federal project delivered in that time. It's just, there's a lot of red tape. We're really trying to work through how to get those out the door quicker. And we, on the Vision Zero team, are actually taking on a few. Typically, NCDOT will be the project manager for federal projects, but we've actually taken on a few ourselves to try and expedite the process. Spot mobility, that's scored, it's basically spot safety, but it's scored on a different, it's not safety based, it's more based on getting traffic places faster, saving travel time. Our second source of funding is CIP funding, bond funding, and then private development. Occasionally we'll be able to entice a developer to do some work for us, get some safety infrastructure out there. Vision Zero gets its own funding, and then there's existing roadway projects like the Six Forks Road project. I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with. I think that's here in Midtown CAC, is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure. So sometimes we're able to get additional safety infrastructure through those existing CIP projects, which is a really great win for us. And then occasionally council will put money aside for individual new traffic signals. And then the third bucket here, operational, there's the least money in that bucket, but it is honestly, it helps us get a lot done. We get a lot of signs, pavement markings, installed, refreshed, reinstalled after they get hit, as you mentioned. We get all that comes from that operational budget. So all those things there. They can be really effective. Signs and pavement markings can do a lot of work. They might not seem like a lot, but those chevrons at 5.6 that I showed you guys earlier, those have been really effective. So signs can work. Next slide, please. So this is our high injury network. We're working right now through a consultant to develop a comprehensive safety action plan. And part of that, we are developing our own prioritization network. I told you guys earlier about NCDOT's potentially hazardous list. So we're working on our own, and it's called the High Injury Network. And we'll go over another slide in a second called the High Risk Network. So this is going to basically show us where we're having those fatal and serious fatal crashes and serious injury crashes throughout the city, and help us just to prioritize those locations. And then this stat down here is pretty crazy. 68% of fatal and serious injury crashes occur on only 13% of our roads. So Vision Zero sounds like, when somebody first hears it, they might think, oh, that's kind of a crazy goal. Like, how the heck are we going to achieve that? Well, it's only 13% of our roads that are accounting for almost 70% of our fatal and serious crashes. That seems a lot more achievable.
Where is the worst road?
I don't have it memorized, but I could tell you it's going to be Capitol, New Bern, South Saunders. It's one of those.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised Wake Forest doesn't factor in there.
It is, and we'll go over that in a second. We're about to zoom in on you guys at the CAC here in 1 minute. I think it might be the next slide. Let's see. Yes, okay. So we're going to go through 2 slides that overlay, hopefully this is the correct boundaries for your CAC, but this first one shows the high injury network for vehicular safety for you guys in CAC. The next one will show for bike ped. So on the right upper list, that is, those are segments of road ranked throughout the city in terms of vehicular safety. And I can't show you the exact limits because we're limited by how much I can show, but Falls of the Neuse, number 5 on our list. And then like you said, Wake Forest, that's number 9, that's not far off. That bottom list is high injury intersections in Midtown CAC. And I'm sorry, that first list is top 20. The second one, the intersections, is top 50. And you guys have 2 in your CAC.
Well, we're actually making progress because the Wake Forest Navajo Drive intersection used to be in like the top 10 continually.
Yeah, and
So I guess you're getting better with that.
yeah, and actually there's a project, we'll talk about it, but there's a project currently under construction at that intersection to fix some things out there. Next slide.
Can I ask a question? real quick?
Sure, yeah.
So Six Forks is a long road.
Yes.
Is it just the Midtown CAC area, or is it all of 6 Forks?
So yeah, like limited by being in a PowerPoint, I couldn't sometimes you'll see if you click on the segments in our map that we have in this GIS map, it'll highlight certain portions. And it might not even be continuous. You might, might start at one road, end at another road, there's a gap, and then, so we have specific limits on our map. I don't know what they are for 6 Forks. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but yeah.
I know one of the worst ones was right in front of North Hills Mall, right where the interchange is, right where they come off I-440 onto 6 Forks. That was for a long time one of the worst on the road.
Yeah, you're talking about front at North Hills.
Yeah.
Is that right? And so we'll talk about a few projects we have in the works in you guys' area, and I think that's one of them too. That's in a few slides. So next slide, this is our bike ped HIN or high injury network. This essentially, it's the same as the last map, except just bike and ped crashes. And bike and ped crashes happen less often, so that the amount of time that we search over, instead of a 5-year amount of data for crashes, we look at 10 years for bike peds. So you have to look at it with a little bit more of a cautious lens. But so the Wake Forest Road 6 Forks, those are you guys' high injury network segments, and then the intersections, Millbrook 6 Forks, planned at Steinbeck. Next slide, please. So high risk network, this is to be used for prioritization paired with our high injury network. So crashes occur kind of randomly to a degree. I mean, they occur because of a reason, but they can be somewhat random in that you won't always see crashes happening at an intersection just because it is dangerous, right? It might not be happening. We might just see a gap for a few years. So what this does is it allows us to take some factors that key into that, to a road being dangerous, and allow us to look at more broadly, like which roads would we expect fatal or serious injuries to occur on, even if they're not happening yet. So we use things like number of lanes, ADT, that's just a fancy way, another fancy acronym that basically means road volume. Functional class, it's just the type of road, equity area, transit stops. We see a lot of bike ped crashes near transit stops, unfortunately, and railroad crossings. Next slide. So we're going to go through a quick case study. This is how we would look at an intersection and determine if there's a problem, and then how we would go to fix it. So Edwards Mill at Wade, we're all familiar with it. I hope everyone's been to like something at the RBC Center or PNC. Lenovo. Sorry, I'm chasing all the names.
Way back.
Yeah, I went way back. This is over by the Coliseum, whatever you want to call it. It's ranked number 2 in Raleigh for vehicular safety, number 35 in the state. So it actually breaks the top 50 for the entire state. Next slide, please. So we pull crashes, and sometimes at intersections we'll make something called a crash diagram. The 2 blue chunks you see highlighted, those are what we call a left turn same roadway crashes. So those are, I should mention, Edwards Mill at Wade is technically 2 signals, so that's why you see two different diagrams here. So we see left turn same roadway crashes, a lot of them with a total of, I think, 3 serious injuries between these 2 diagrams. And what that is somebody just turning left, failing to yield for an oncoming vehicle. Occasionally it can be somebody running a red light, and those are the crashes you see with a little red square. Next slide, please. So what can we do about left turn same roadway crashes? Well, we can provide a protected left turn phase. So in this case, we would have to install new infrastructure. We couldn't just make a change to the signal timing. We'd have to actually get something out there. So we have a project funded to install these protected left turn heads, and then also retroreflective backplates. Those help with red light running. They like frame out the signal head so you can see it. They help a lot at night. They help some during the day. Next slide. So this slide is just showing you when you might hear permissive left turns, you might hear protected left turns. I don't even think I use the word permissive, but the one on the left, permissive left turns, it's when you see a flashing yellow arrow or a green ball. That means yield to oncoming traffic. When you see a green arrow at all and it's pointed left, that means that you don't have to yield to oncoming traffic. So we're just getting those 2 clarified. Next slide, please. Edwards Mill, okay, I'm getting lost here. Okay, so sometimes when we have a project like this, we have an opportunity to make changes beyond just, oh, there's a crash problem, let's fix that. We're gonna be out here, we're gonna be doing work. We might be pursuing funding where we have a little bit of leeway to get something else installed. So in this case, currently, if you go out there before the work's done, you'll see 4 crosswalks with no ped signals. There's nothing, it's just cars pulling right through. You don't have anything telling you to go, to stop. So we went ahead and included, as part of this project, pedestrian signal heads, which are the 2 closest to Wade you see in the center. And then on the outer 2 ramps, one's an exit ramp, one's an on ramp. You see RFBs, we're gonna install RFBs there. And then the last thing I wrote there, accessible pedestrian signals, that is becoming a pseudo mandate recently. But we basically are installing, they're called APS, accessible pedestrian signals, and they allow the visually impaired to hear instructions to tell them to cross. We have those downtown. If you guys have been down there, you might have heard the robotic voice saying cross Hillsborough Street. So we're installing those pretty much everywhere now. And it's kind of a mandate as part of the ADA. Next slide, please.
James, just curious, as you talk about this intersection, how much of these, and I don't know if you can study this, but how much of these accidents that you have at this intersection are related to arena traffic?
That is, it can be really hard to dive into that because we basically, the amount of information we have, if you look at it's called a DMV 349 form, which is our RPD or whoever the police agency is fills out a report. And it's a state format, like the state has one format for all of North Carolina. There's nothing in it unless they happen to write something into the description of like the report. There's like a field where they have like free response kind of. There's no way for us to know basically. I'm using a lot of words to say.
Not even time of day, I guess, I don't know.
Time of day.
If you could track like all these accidents happen at 9:35 p.m., you know, when the game's playing, you know, that's my thought.
Yeah, so we currently, and maybe in the future, there will be an AI tool we can do that with.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just not worth our time, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
We just see a pattern and we look to fix it however we can. So that's your question.
Yeah, thank you.
So now we'll dive into a few projects that I guess you guys are probably familiar with. Those are kind of in our biggest areas. So this first one, this is something we have done already. If you guys have been downtown, we did a pedestrian safety project. It was completed probably 2 years ago, I want to say. There were a few pretty big things we did. So we consolidated dual turn lanes into single turn lanes. I think all but like 2 of them. There were about 5, 6, 7, and we consolidated them down because dual turning vehicles can be a real danger to pedestrians. It makes it really hard to see pedestrians when they're crossing. We also lowered the speed limit to 25 throughout all of that. That's the CBD, Central Business District. We installed LPIs, which again, another acronym, leading pedestrian interval. It basically allows when you're crossing at a signal, it gives you a head start before vehicles can turn across. So they have a red for a few extra seconds while you're walking. And then the most controversial one, no turn on red at every signal approach in that whole yellow area. So I think that the way this whole effort started was from a state employee being killed, I believe, and I think it was it was a turn on red situation. So that's.
I know they had a pedestrian killed that way.
Yes, there was a pedestrian killed. It was a state employee, and I'm pretty sure it was a turn on red because it was a very low speed crash. This was a state funded project. Go ahead.
Great question, because the no turn on red drive impacts. So if it's red, wouldn't the pedestrian not be crossing anyway?
So you're like,
Don't they go with the flow of traffic?
well, right, but it's meant to protect you from turning vehicles. So what we get a lot downtown, especially with one-way streets, is you'll have somebody sitting at a light, it turns red as they sit at the light,
Yeah.
and then people start to cross, and they're looking left because it's one way, and they're waiting for a gap, and then they go, and then they hit somebody. Because they don't even look right, because why would you? I mean, it's one way, right?
Right. I guess in like New York City, typically their crosswalks are timed with their lights.
Mhm.
So if it's red, you wait.
So
With the car, you know what I'm saying, like with the car, like you wouldn't cross the street while your direction is red.
So if my direction went red downtown, if you're on a side street and you had a red and the main line's running, then you're getting me all mixed up here now, sorry. So basically what this does is it protects somebody from getting hit as they're crossing. I'm struggling to so I'll just use the picture. So this is a left, but let's pretend it's a right. And you're sitting here and your light goes red, then I'll get totally mixed up here, I'm sorry.
So I think it's because like traditionally pedestrians, you go with the green light. Like if you don't have a cross, well, you don't have a little flashing man or a light, you go with the green light.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't cross a red light while it's red
Well, you turn right
You know
on,
what I'm
you're turning right on red
for the car.
for the car, correct?
But the pedestrian will wait until that light turned green
If you're turning right on red,
as the car, but walking straight as the pedestrian. If there's no crosswalk,
Yeah, if
light guiding.
sorry, I'm very visual, so I'm struggling to talk through this. But basically, if you have an intersection and you have a green, you're going green, and your light goes yellow, red, then they're gonna allow these people to cross. You're gonna get people off the side street, are gonna turn right on red and hit somebody.
Right. Maybe I just learned it differently.
I'm just getting totally thrown off, I'm
So
sorry.
basically, the light won't change for a couple of seconds, they give people to cross a chance to go.
Correct, it continues to stay red, yeah,
All four lights are red, you just get a head start
correct.
with your white man, walking
Yeah,
by. So you get to get a jump before the light goes green and somebody comes right around them.
Yeah, and regardless of which approach is red or whatnot, whenever you're crossing, a turning vehicle crosses both, like this crosswalk and this crosswalk, right? So one of them has a walk, and all it's doing is saying, all red, so that nobody's gonna get hit.
Right.
It allows the pedestrian to get out.
Have you
in front.
checked to see how well it's working? Because when I go downtown, it seems like people still make a right-hand turn.
So people are getting tickets. I actually know somebody personally that got a ticket due to the no run on red, and they're complaining to me about it. And I'm sorry, I'm just getting, I get
No,
thrown
no,
off
it's okay,
sometimes.
it's okay. I
In
know the small town didn't
intersections
have
with
crosswalks.
high pedestrian traffic as well as high traffic volume like downtown.
Yeah.
Have you considered every way is red for traffic, pedestrians all cross, and then.
Yeah.
Have you ever,
It's got a name, it's like a scramble, something
Diamond,
scramble.
it's a diamond thing where everybody crosses at once.
Yeah,
all the pedestrians cross at
Generally,
once,
it
and then you let
works
the
in
traffic go one way and then the traffic the
You'll
other
see
way.
that in much bigger cities though, so
Like
like
Tokyo.
Washington DC,
Yeah.
where you can go diagonally
Yeah.
and you can go across and everything like that. Most of the downtown intersections just aren't that big.
yeah, agreed. And also, like, I think you'd have to wait that your signal cycle length would be so long, people would end up not waiting for it, right? Like, they'd be waiting so long for a pedestrian movement that a lot of times what we see unfortunately is if you have to wait too long, you disobey. So that'd be another thing we would worry about. Any other questions on this? Okay. Next slide, please. So we have a phase 2 coming up. This is gonna focus on our mid-block crosswalks that exist currently in downtown. We're not gonna be building any new ones. There's quite a few. We're gonna be looking at 13 raised crosswalks. So that's gonna be a pretty big change as you go downtown. People are gonna be forced to actually drive the speed limit, at least on the roads that we have the raised crosswalks. In conjunction with that, we'll have curb extensions, which essentially what that does, it shortens the distance people have to actually cross and also blocks vehicles from parking on or right beside crosswalks. And that's actually currently in city ordinance. I think it's 12 feet off from the crosswalk, you're not allowed to park. Like, it doesn't matter if it's posted, whatever, you're not allowed to park, period. So those will be done with flexible delineators and paint.
James, just one thing on the
Okay.
curb extensions.
Yes.
We've had a real problem with them, especially on Hardman, because they come too close to the intersection. So the car, if there's a curb extension there, the car wants to make a right-hand turn. He actually has to go into the opposite lane to get around the curb extension. They're not cut back far enough. They need to distance them more from the street intersection. And
Gotcha.
hopefully somebody has corrected that.
So ours will be at mid-block crosswalk, so they shouldn't be near intersections at all. That shouldn't really come into play at all. And then the last is kind of a minor thing, but we're looking at some alternate appearance crosswalks. So this will look like brick. It's not gonna be actual brick, because that would be expensive. It'll be MMA, which is the type of material they can paint on the road, or thermoplastic. So yeah, we got this funded with NCDOT within the past year, I believe. So it's something that we're working to implement here. Well, we're looking to go to design here the next year. Next slide, please. So we won't be going to this blind. We recently designed and worked with our street maintenance group to construct 2 raised crosswalks on St. Mary Street out by Broughton High School. 2 crosswalks there. We had over 700 crossings in a day, I believe. That is the most we've ever seen or ever counted in the city of Raleigh. The kids going to and from the school, they go to their cars, they'll go to lunch. They have different periods that they go on and off campus. So if you've ever been out here, there's a crazy number of people crossing. It's almost mind-boggling. And actually down towards Cameron Village, you see kind of similar numbers when they go to their cars, when the school lets out. So this is something that we're really excited about and it's been really successful, and big kudos to our street maintenance group. They didn't need to do this, but they allowed us to wrap this into their street resurfacing. Next slide, please. So zooming in on you guys' area, these are some recent projects that we've gotten completed. So that picture, and this is actually a little outside of your area, but I cheated and used it anyway. But Millbrook at Town and Country, that's a traffic signal we work with NCDOT to construct here in the past year and a half, something like that. We had some fatal crashes out there and got that installed. Some other examples, I think Larry, you mentioned Navajo, Wake Forest, protect the left turns. There's not currently a way for us to do fully protect the left turns for certain times of the day. There's a project being installed right now that'll allow us to do that. That's one of the two high injury intersections you guys have in your CAC. There's some other examples planned that falls into specific. I won't go too much into detail because I think I'm running long already. Next slide, please. Big old block of text again. This is upcoming safety projects in you guys' area. So the last list was completed. These are new and upcoming. These are either funded or soon to be funded. Six Forks Road, you guys are aware that that's already going on just about right away. I think it's already right away. That'll make a ton of improvements in some much needed areas. Blue Ridge, Glenwood Lead Mine. Again, I'm not going to go through all these. Larry, I think you mentioned front of North Hills. That's on here. There's going to be some big improvements there. Down by North Hills, there's actually a pedestrian signal. I think that's Lasserville at Pamlico. Going to do some improvements down there. So yeah, you guys can scrub through it as much as you want. Feel free to email me with questions if you have any.
How about the other project? Did council recently prioritize 10 bad intersections they wanted to improve? I know a couple are on Atlantic.
Yes, so I'm gonna reach back into my memory bank here. We had the top 10 HSIP, which is, I say HSIP, another acronym. It's basically our potentially hazardous locations that DOT prioritizes. They asked us which intersections were most dangerous in Raleigh, so we showed them the top 10 for bike ped and for vehicular. And some of those are being addressed already, have been addressed already, and then some we're assembling a project for DOT. And I think some of these locations are part of that, like Front and North Hills, that's one of them.
Yeah.
Bland at Wake Forest, that's another one. So
the one in Atlantic was intriguing because it's right where the ironworks is. Ironworks, and then there's a development across the street. I can't remember what that's called.
Yeah.
But it seemed to me that if you were going to work on that particular intersection, since it benefits the businesses on both sides of that road,
yeah,
you would think you'd get ask for a contribution from both of those businesses to support that intersection work.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting up to pay for it.
Sure, yeah. I will say there were some decisions made in the past that people wish were made differently. That should have happened, is what I'll say.
Can it still happen?
The city's working to make it so it can. And I think that there have been a lot of strides made. But I do believe that specific location you're talking about, there were people wish decisions were made differently back in the day, or they may not have even had a way to get the developer to build that infrastructure. It might have been the way the city code was written at the time. I can't recall specifically.
Yeah, I know if they don't ask, it won't happen.
Yeah, the city has to ask somebody, yeah, otherwise who's gonna spend money for no reason? But good question. Next slide. So safe streets and roads for all. This is the mechanism that allowed us to go through this whole safety action plan I talked about earlier. It's allowing us to hire a consultant. So what we did is the federal government has a grant out that you can get planning money or you can get implementation money. We got planning money 1 to 2 years ago, the date's on here, and are currently working with a consultant to create a safety action plan. That will give us an actual plan to achieve Vision Zero. At that point, after we use our $1 million to create our plan, we'll be able to pursue implementation funding, which is up to $25 million. So that'll be a big chunk of change to use towards this effort. There's a round in early 2026, March, that we'll be looking to apply for. And we'll finish our plan with our consultant here this December. So that's when you guys can look to see the finalized safety action plan. Next one. So we talked a lot about infrastructure, and I have to concede that a big part of this is going to be behavior. So that starts obviously with all of us, but it also starts with educating people and trying to get people to do the things they need to do. So a lot of our fatal crashes are very, I don't say preventable. A big chunk of our vehicular crash fatals are caused by not wearing a seatbelt, believe it or not. I think it was 60 to 70%. I don't have the stats in front of me here. Another big one is speeding. Pretty often when we look at a fatal crash, the person's going well above 70. So that's another thing we have to look out for. And then obviously safe behaviors for pedestrians and people on bikes. So everyone really needs to play a role in this. And so we're going to be looking at doing some public messaging, and maybe even starting kind of with some of these partners like schools. Might be good to get people knowing about safety culture on the road younger, so that they can actually it can kind of be ingrained into them. Next slide, please. So just wrapping this up, kind of what we've already accomplished. Again, we kind of talked about it earlier, but 11 million for the past couple of years. We've improved a bunch of school zones. We talked about the phase 1 project for downtown PEDS. Streetlight improvements, that's been big lately. Trying to improve streetlights, especially on our transit corridors. We were awarded the SS48 Safety Action Plan grant. That's that planning grant I talked about. And that will allow us to get the implementation funding. We work a lot with our traffic calming group. Hopefully that's not controversial, but they do help us a lot to reduce speed limits, and also to address speeding problems. And then we have our Vision Zero webpage. Next slide. So next steps, what do we have going on next? December 2025, like I said, our plan will be completed. Spring of 26, we'll be able to apply for that big funding pot of money. Here's some signalized intersections that we have on the docket. Actually, Riverbend on there is about to be completed, but Wakefield Middle and High School, Willard Middle, Harris Creek Elementary, and then Glenwood, there's 2 signals on Glenwood. And then we've got a few bigger projects that we're working to manage ourselves instead of NCDOT. That's Capitol Calvary. If you guys have been out there, that's just about our worst intersection in the whole thing. No, we have money for it, but we're working, and the design's completed, but we're working to construct it. MLK Safety Improvement Project, that's a corridor project along MLK, and then our phase 2 of downtown. So yeah, next slide, please. That's all I have. Again, James Sudano, apologies for the stumbling over the no right turn on red, but I appreciate you guys' attention, and it's been really great to present, so thank you for the opportunity.
Any questions?
I have one. Were you pointing at me or raising your hands? Well, thank you. So with the statistics, do you have, because if this was implemented in 2022, so 2023, 24, 25, do you have statistics of, okay, this was the target area and this is the reduction of whatever that target, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have that data?
So we, like everything, that's a nuanced answer, but so the state, are you talking about a specific project or just generally?
Just in general, just have an overall Vision Zero.
So, like I said, our bread and butter is spot safety. Most of our projects get done through that. The state does a before and after analysis.
Okay.
It's very comprehensive. So we don't feel the need to do it ourselves necessarily. The only caveat with it is it's 5 years out. So we use 5 years of crash data. So you have it before 5 years, you implement the countermeasure, and then you wait 5 years. Everything's on a very long timeline with us. Now that said, we occasionally, for like the purposes of maybe we have kind of a atypical countermeasure, we want to see if that works well. We might come in at 2 years and try to figure out, okay, is this working? Should we keep, implementing this? So we do a little bit of interim type of before-after analysis, but largely we rely on the state's before and after because they do a very comprehensive
So
job.
2027,
For which project?
to know, just in general, what the department is up to and what it's achieved, how it's been successful in implementing. Some words that are 5 years after the.
I'm saying each
construction.
individual project.
I guess each.
Yeah,
individual
so we don't say like, have we done all these countermeasures across the city? What's the difference? We look at each location. So do you have a specific location?
So it's spot specific.
Correct.
So do you treat the local project the same as the state project with that 5-year window before and after?
We are trying to formalize a process to do that. We just don't have capacity right now. So what that would mean right now is taking time away from installing and pursuing funding for proven countermeasures that we know work to do that. So we'd like to formalize a process to do before and after. It's just right now, it doesn't. Right now, we don't feel it makes the most sense with our time, with our limited
They
time.
go out and get the metrics probably.
Yeah, it's just, there's a lot of work to polish it and make sure it's right. And so we may end up farming that out with a consultant or something in the future. But right now, it just, with our limited staff time, we're focusing on getting more stuff in the ground. So, any other questions? Cool, awesome. Well, thank you guys again. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, James.
Thanks.
By the way, we're trying to get your counterpart out here, Mr. Schumacher.
Oh, yeah. I saw your emails.
Yeah. All right, moving right along. We have a special guest tonight. We have Emile Hartman tonight with the Midtown Raleigh Alliance. You've been executive chairman for what, a year?
Just over a year.
So we're still trying to break him in. But hopefully he'll show you all about what the Midtown Raleigh Alliance is about. And we hope to work closer coming up, so welcome. Emile, all yours.
Thank you, Larry. So yeah, as Larry said, my name is Emile Hartman. I'm Executive Director of Midtown Raleigh Alliance. As you see on the screen, our 3 pillars are advocate, communicate, and connect. So we stand by all of those. I think they are very fitting pillars of our organization. We advocate for the area, specifically Midtown, North Hills. I get the question all the time, what is Midtown? I know the longtime Raleigh folks want to fight it and say that it doesn't exist, and it's still North Hills to them. And it's a funny conversation I typically have. So to inform people, I always say that everyone's definition of exactly the map of Midtown is going to be different, and that's okay. I would say North Hills is the heart of it. It expands in all directions from there. But we, as an organization, want to advocate for the area, and then obviously we want to communicate and keep people up to date on what's going on with the business community, but with the growth of the area and with the community as a whole. We have monthly networking events to inform, but also connect folks as well. And it's not just business focused. We have folks like Ruben himself, who's a member, and he comes to events, socials to stay involved. But if you want to change the slide here, I'll kind of dive in on a little more of who we are. So we are a membership-based organization. So we have a list of members. We've been around since 2011. Typically, we've had a fluctuation of annual members that drop off. We had a few. The goal since I've started has been to grow the organization, grow the membership, because the more members that we have, the more support that we have from city leaders, and we can go to them and say, hey, we as an organization want to support X, Y, and Z. We want these things to change and to happen. And it carries obviously more weight the bigger we are as an organization. So growing the membership, working on it, see a lot of familiar businesses there, from banks to developers to Raleigh Hospital, law firms. We have a huge variety, all the way to some smaller businesses, startups, nonprofits. We want to support our food and beverage places that we have as well. And then we do have individual memberships where individuals can come. As I mentioned, Ruben is a member of ours as an individual, and it keeps him in the loop and coming to events. So working on growing this slowly but surely. I don't want to, I came in thinking I was gonna double this pretty quickly, and I added some good members right from the beginning, and I realized that I wanted to make sure that the businesses and individuals that became members were getting the full value of the membership. And next year, when their membership comes up for an invoice, they want to pay that invoice again and stay a member. So I want to make it a slow, steady growth where we're continuing to add membership, and they're getting the value that they deserve of an MRA member. So we're working on this growth, and we have just under 100 members right now. Want to change the slide for me, please? Thank you. So as you see there, it says MRA promotes Midtown as a destination for economic development and collaborative community. We were created in 2011. The organization has been around with the purpose of not only serving as the voice of the business community, but we recognize that our business leaders, our employees, and our citizens, they all come to the area to live, work, play. And so we want to serve as the voice of the business community, but also as the citizens as well, and be there to work hand in hand with the CAC. And appreciate Larry for reaching out right off the bat when I started and forming a relationship that we're only continuing to build on right now. So we, as you see there, we unite organizations to foster a collaborative forum. So we have issues in the area where we want to address those, but we also want to inform. So we have last year we hosted a transportation forum talking about updates on not only, I'll touch on it later, but the Six Forks road plan that was mentioned previously. That's a huge issue for us as an organization, us as an area in Midtown. So we had a transit forum that talked about that from the city. We talked about bus rapid transit, the airport, and talked about how big of an economic driver that is. I don't know if any of you have flown through Charlotte lately, but thank God we live in Raleigh and have the airport we do here. I think we're very fortunate to have such a great airport. So talking about all things pertaining to transportation in the area, mainly focused on Midtown, but that was an informative event. We had a real estate forum as well, talking a lot about commercial, some residential as well. Typically we host that every year. We are also going to host an economic development forum this year, talking about all different updates in the economic development world here in Raleigh. Again, pertaining to Midtown is our focus. So we have some of those events each year to inform and make sure that people are in the know as to what's going on in our area. We advocate for the needs of Midtown before the city. As I mentioned, Six Forks is the big topic right now for us. We advocated for it for over 10 years. Fortunately, City Council approved a scaled back version a little over a year ago of that project. And we are really pushing to make this happen and get it across the finish line because the longer we wait, the higher the price is, and that's just the reality of it. So again, I'll circle back on that one. I'm sure you may have questions on that. We provide social networking opportunities. So again, we host monthly events. Those monthly events, a couple times a year, we'll have these forums that are a little bit more informative. And then we have very relaxed socials where, for instance, this Thursday we'll be at Beach Music. We have about 50 spots at this event, and we have members that they get their ticket paid for, and non-members can sign up, and that's typically how our events work. You can sign up and pay a small fee to come to our event and just socialize, network with our members, our non-members. Everyone gets together with their guard down. It's a very relaxed atmosphere where you can pick the brains of other business leaders and citizens of the area. We give back to the community, so that's a big focus. When I started a little over a year ago, I wanted to work on giving back more than we do already. So we have the Midtown Community Hero Scholarship that's been around for 7 years. It pulls on the heartstrings with the amazing kids that we do have. I know we hear in the media a lot of, when we talk about, there's issues and the kids aren't raised right in TikTok and all this stuff, but we have some amazing kids that are going through our schools here. So Sanderson High School, we work with them. That's our Midtown High School where we give away a scholarship each year, 2 actually now. So we just finished those interviews. And we have 2 great students that are receiving $2,300 a piece to go to their college next year. So proud to be able to support and do that, and we're only looking to increase that number that we give away each year. We built on, the 2,300 was the highest we've had. Last year we gave away two $1,500 scholarships. Just trying to continue to fundraise and build on that. We also have a program that's supporting Midtown's future success, so it's called Emerging Midtown. Emerging Midtown was created right a year before I started as executive director. That kind of picked up where we left off, and trying to build that program where we have business leaders that are looking for more development and professional development, where they come to monthly events on top of MRA events. So we have a monthly Emerging Midtown event where I'll go into it a little more detail, but we're getting networking opportunities with the board, with the group as a whole. It's about 20 members right now, but they're given the opportunity to develop their skills and get involved and learn more about Midtown as a whole. So as I mentioned, we have these monthly events. We have an annual celebration. It's not content driven. The state of Midtown is typically more of a celebration, get people in the room and highlight a new building. So we were at 1000 Social this past year, DeWitt Carolina's property, beautiful office building. And we had a great evening of again, highlighting the growth of the area here that we have. And we typically have a nice new building to show off. So stay tuned for this year's, it'll be in September, typically when we host that event. We have, as I mentioned, the forums, and then we have our networking socials where going to different businesses in the area and bringing business to them, and also just making sure that we're staying connected as a group. This is the Community Hero Scholarship I was talking about. So we have our winners for this year up there, Katie Loftus and Andrew Oppen. It's, again, an amazing program, and it's fully funded by donations from our membership. So we are proud to be able to give back and help our Sanderson High School students out. They're going to be amazing advocates for this area, that's for sure. And whatever they do next, they're all different fields that are that they're going into. So the Emerging Midtown program I mentioned, so it started in 2023 with a mission to educate, engage and empower young professionals. So we have had sessions about marketing yourself with LinkedIn and Google yourself and what comes up, and trying to help feed the algorithm as to who you are as a person in the business world. Preparing yourself for being in this workplace in this day and age. We have networking events, working on intentional networking, learning about home buying and that process. We don't get enough education on that, so we had a session on that, and a variety of other things where we're bringing them, young professionals, a lot of them, into a room where they can network with our board members as well. So if you know anyone that needs some professional development, can use this, feel free to send them my way. I'm happy to have a conversation, or even bring them to one event to showcase the group to them. If you want to change forward, please. Thank you. There's my information right there. So I'm accessible. I have my cell phone out there to be accessible for people. So I'm reachable there. My email, obviously, but I want to be a resource, and I want to be able to help not only our businesses but our citizens as well. And again, as I mentioned, Barry reaching out to me and forming the relationship, I want to make sure that our goals that we have in mind work together on, such as the Six Forks Transit plan, Six Forks Road plan is very important to us as an organization, and obviously to the CAC as well. You guys have any questions for me?
So this is my first time at a CAC meeting. If my comment's not appropriate, just let me know. But as an advocate, you say you advocate for business and citizens with the city. And also in regard to your connection with the businesses, I'd just like to make this comment. something I'm very passionate about. So it's a long time, I grew up in North Hills, have lived most of my adult life on Quail Ridge Road. So Midtown's my life. As a senior now, the property taxes are just out of hand. They're too high. And I understand our property values have gone up. But the property taxes are they've gone way too high for people like myself, who are retired, been in my own home, lived here all my life. So, but I expect for a lot of working people as well. So just my sentiment that I like to pass on is, I like the Kane people, I like the North Hills developers. You know, I love what they've done, but they're the ones profiting, your businesses are the ones profiting from the growth, and just feel strongly they need to absorb the cost of infrastructure, not the property owners.
Mhm.
So.
Thank you for sharing, I appreciate it. I'm happy to have more conversation on this as well. Background more about myself, just so I want to make sure that you're heard. I've only been at this a little over a year, right? So some of these things are things I hear for the first time. I've been in the area since 2012. I worked for the Hurricanes. I went to Wake Tech and NC State, and I worked for the Hurricanes for a long time. So this is a new venture for me. So this is something that again, hearing for the first time, and appreciate you sharing. I'm aware that it's an expensive area to live, that's for sure. And for someone like yourself that's been there a long time, I get that that's a challenge, those taxes being higher and property values are higher. There's a benefit to it, but I understand what you're saying as well.
Just been big, huge jumps in the last couple of years.
Absolutely, I hear you. So I'm happy to, if you want to have further conversation about it, feel free to reach out.
That's one of the reasons that I intend to partner more with Emile in the future, because CACs, those of you that aren't familiar with CACs used to be primarily for residents. We used to champion what was best for the residents living in the area, and we'd go to council and try to voice those views. It's very hard, even though we represent a lot of people, there's still very few single voices that are doing that. We have a lot of commonality with the Midtown Raleigh Alliance, like you said about the 6th Ward Road Improvement Project. It's to their benefit, it's to our benefit. And it's myself going in and speaking to council about get the job done, let's get the road finished once and for all, doesn't carry much weight. When I have somebody like the Midtown Raleigh Alliance, it's kind of sounding that same message to council, it carries more weight, or at least together we carry more weight. And that's what I expect we'll do a lot more in the future. So your point is well taken. I'm a 40-year resident here too, and I've watched my taxes go up each year. So we have a lot of common issues. The idea of CAC is to bring those issues forward so we can try to mitigate those as best we can. And I thank Emile for coming and representing his organization. And as he said, I used to consider it a little adversarial because it was primarily developers in the beginning, but they've grown considerably beyond that. And you mentioned like we've gone against Kane, we've worked with DeWitt. So my attitude is kind of changing too, that we have to learn to work with the other organizations that are growing within Midtown. That's the only way Midtown will improve. And that's what our objective is. And to try to get the city to recognize Midtown, spend some of that infrastructure money out here rather than just always downtown or in South Raleigh or whatever. If you notice in some of the graphs, you'll see that a lot of the projects are downtown centered or they're more in the south part of the city. And very little of it, Midtown is assumed to be a wealthy neighborhood. Well, that's true and it's not true, because we need if you're going to grow, you need the infrastructure to grow with it. And the city's been very reluctant to do that. That's why 6th Ward Road is an imperative for us. It's not a question of whether it gets done or not, it's an imperative. So hopefully we'll work together to get it done.
Yeah, thank you on that, Larry. Just to elaborate a little bit more on what you're saying about 6 Forks Road and us working together. I think we all can agree that Midtown is a driver for Raleigh, for the triangle, and that's really happened over the last 15 years. For better or for worse for some people. people, right? I think working together to help the infrastructure catch up to that growth is so important and crucial to where not only employees, but citizens and families and everyone can feel safe, whether they're in a car or they're walking or they're on a bike. It needs to happen. We need to feel safe. We need to be comfortable doing those things and making it an area that we can all travel in safely. So I don't know, I was gonna ask James this earlier, I don't know if I heard that we have an F-rated intersection, I don't know if that's a Six Forks Millbrook Road, but I don't think it's a very good.
That's one of them.
So we need to fix those things for sure. The Six Forks, road plan is so important to us, so.
I just have to show that this is an advocacy. I noticed saying in North Hills, right, I mean, all of our homes, of course, we're getting dinged on the value and also the rates. Right, and I'm hoping in the home buying coaching, you're clearly can make the difference between a home value and a home price, right? And I'm curious as to why we don't have more condominium options coming into North Hills. Because I think it's all apartments. We have the Easton, which from my view is mostly dark with only a few apartment lights on. And it's an extremely high-end luxury concept.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worry that I don't know how many of us will be able to come into this neighborhood now and buy a home. And I don't know how many of our children are gonna be able to afford the home that we have or be able to buy the home. So I'm just curious, is there any talk at all of hey, maybe if there was something that was for purchase that actually could land the middle class a place to live in Midtown, then I think you'll help that generational growth, will help keep some locals here instead of turning us into the next transplant ground zero.
Yeah, I hear you completely, and I'm a transplant myself. I got here to North Carolina in 2010. I was born here, raised in Vermont, came down in 2010, Raleigh specifically in 2012. And so so Beach Music now is on that side. I used to go to the one on the other side of the street, and it was free then.
It was free.
I get it, and I understand what you mean. I've lived apartment life for a long time. I currently rent a townhouse. I'm 32 years old. I rent a townhouse from a friend. So I'm priced out too. I completely get it. There's a lot of challenges with that. It's such a great place to be, and specifically in Midtown, it's a great place to be, right? And so there are cons to that. There are cons to the fact that it's a great place to be, and we all want to be there. Everything's accessible yes, we talk about the transit, but if you live in the Eastern, you walk everywhere, you don't even need to leave. You got a small city environment right there. You have the entertainment you want, you have the food and drink, and you have a grocery store right there, you have it all. So I understand from a price perspective why it's expensive, and building those buildings are expensive. So there are limitations to it. The future of the area, there's a lot of important conversations we had as to how it looks. And I know that, I haven't been in the room in a lot of those conversations. I'm starting to, as I'm a year in, I'm forming relationships when I'm more in the room with folks as they look to the future of this area, what it looks like. The rezoning for Computer Drive, Bear Drive area, that includes affordable housing as part of it, and hopefully, that progress gets made down the road. I'm not sure, I can't remember the exact timing of that, but that's an example where hopefully there is affordability in the Midtown area, specifically in the North.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, if the affordable housing, when it's city speak, it typically means subsidized rental, not home ownership, not condo ownership, not I can buy now and live here for the next 40 years concept. It's more subsidized rental. So, affordable housing versus an affordable purchasable home are just two totally different concepts. So I just kind of.
Yeah, I think there's only one development I've seen that has that concept of owning to share, shared owner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right, because all the serving staff, that lives in, that works in North Hills, they can't live in North Hills.
Right, of course.
And so, I know there's always that gap.
Well, then we can talk about parking, right? Where do they, how does that work, right? It's like, we could talk for a while about it.
So I'm trying to get city council to give us golf carts to let us drive them and leave us alone, so just so you know.
Make it a golf cart community, Florida. No, I hear what you're saying completely, and I understand it's an issue, absolutely.
It's the thought.
As I can attest, I don't have some in the area. I lived at the Alistair for a couple of years, and I would walk around the area, and I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
It was great.
I have to be affordable.
I didn't, it wasn't that I was like fully priced out, I just had an opportunity to live in a townhouse, and it was an upgrade for me to live in a townhouse. That's a rental from a friend, so for myself, you know, I'm in the same boat that you're talking about, I get it. Again, we can follow up and talk more about this, absolutely, and as I learn more about certain issues that we have, I'm happy to help answer questions and address them if needed.
That's awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? All right, go Hurricanes. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah.
Steve, take through it.
Oh, sure. One thing I'll throw out there is that originally, you know, some of you will remember that the Lasseter was supposed to be a condo development.
Yeah.
And it changed over. The one thing, and I think, we actually go back to that through the hurricanes, but the one thing that came up during a couple of presentations is that when you do a condo development, the developer actually gives up control of the property because it goes over to the HOA. And that's part of the reluctance, because you can either continue to collect rent for years, or you sell it and you're done. So it's an investment type thing, and the market here, sadly enough, is not condo friendly. So that's my thanks. That has nothing to do with what I'm supposed to present. So, basically, my name is Steve Reckfield. I serve on the Raleigh Parks Advisory Board, and I'm also a community connector, which means I go to the first neighborhood meetings that are held when somebody submits a rezoning application. So those are two totally separate things, and so I do both of them. So the first is Z3924. That is the rezoning up on Honeycutt, and that one's been going on for a while. So Honeycutt is technically not in District A. Okay, it's actually it's an extra EJ. Yeah. And but that one now will have a public hearing on June 3rd. So that one's been going on for a while.
You know why I got this about?
Because they were waiting for the developer to come back with some changes in the application. And apparently they did come back with the changes, so they moved it to 6-3. Z1625 is 6100 Creedmoor. They had and what they want to do is go from R4 to OMAX, which is mixed use. And that one, they had a neighborhood meeting on March 11th, and no one attended. It's a very small property that has a house on it. Literally, it's a family deal. Grandma lives there now. She's going to go someplace else that they're going to build for her, and they want to develop the property. It is actually adjacent to a storage facility, and I forget what's on the other side. Actually, it's an office on the other side. So it's sort of one of those older residential properties that's sandwiched between a couple of more non-residential properties. And it's actually right across the street from the school up there in Creedmoor. So
what are they trying to change?
they want to turn it
from
into mixed
residential
use. So
to
it'll
what?
be, what it'll be, they're talking about retail on the bottom, maybe some offices, and then maybe some apartment rentals up top. So mixed use.
How much land? Do you know how much land there?
It's not, you know what, I forgot to write that down, but it wasn't much. It's probably, it's between 1/4 and 1/2 acre. I mean, it's not that big. But like I said, on either side is, office property and storage. So it's,
right next to
sorry?
another storage.
Yeah,
I
well,
live
that's,
in that
the
district,
storage,
we don't
yeah.
have a CAC, so that's why I come
yeah, the
here.
storage place is in place, so I mean, it's
Yeah.
done, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, we're talking about, we're talking about apartments and business and
this
just
is
how,
not-
how high are they going with it?
the 3 stories at the most that you
Oh,
go,
okay.
and it's not that big, frankly, you probably wouldn't want to live there, at this point, because of the way the development's going. Okay, that's it for rezoning. The District A has had minimal rezoning going on, quite frankly, for
So
a
far,
couple of years.
so far.
Yeah, for a while. Okay, so let's go to parks. Aaron,
Before you jump off of that, even though we've had a minimum amount of rezoning in Midtown, sooner or later, the dam's gonna break. There's an awful lot of them that have been approved for Midtown. And when they start building, it's gonna be like night and day, they're gonna be all over the place. If you think roads aren't moving now, pretty soon they won't move at all. Especially the one that's gonna kick in right below the I-40 interchange on 6th Court. When that comes in, even though we're gonna gain affordable housing with it, that's gonna impact that roadway big time. And the only thing they're doing is improving the intersection, so the cars can get in and out a little easier, but it's gonna be the same road width, the same traffic.
We need that multimodal bridge over.
Yeah.
Here we go.
You said that nobody showed up at the hearing for that once, because nobody knows about them, there are so
they
many.
actually,
And nobody knows, so how are they gonna show up?
well, to be fair, they notified everybody within
Yeah, right
the
there,
area around it,
they'll
and
live right there.
it was, well,
From the story.
to be fair, behind, what is behind, okay, so on Creedmoor, you had that storage facility, this property, and the property next to it. There are residential properties behind them, okay, because not accessible from Creedmoor, but accessible from the roads behind it. Everyone there was notified. I did, I look at that, I saw it, they were all notified. Nobody showed up. I mean, it's just, that's all I can say.
It's probably not controversial. It's probably not controversial.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, is that probably because they're, Creedmoor's here, right? And you got this stuff, and I'm behind it. And if you're just gonna take this little house and you're gonna change it into something else, I mean, they didn't show up. I mean, that's all I can say. Is I know there's issues about notifications. I know there's issues about communications, but in this particular case, they showed me the thing, and literally, I was the only person there that.
My ear perked up because I heard you say it's across from elementary school, which is where my grandson's getting ready to go this fall.
Mhm.
But if you don't live right there,
Right,
you don't find out about it. unless
but the people behind
you Go to a
it,
CAC meeting, which we don't have, and
the
haven't had.
people behind it did not
In,
come back out, so I was the only person there that wasn't a developer or a family member. All right, and now we're back. Erinsbrook Park is one of the new parks that was in the 2022 bond, and it's 13 acres, and the schematic was approved. So what will happen with that is now it gets further developed and then recommended to council. Tomorrow morning, council will be having a work session on boards and commissions. So one of the things City Council is doing is taking a look at all the boards and commissions that I think there's well over 20 of them at this point. And they want to look and see if, hey, some of them should be merged, some of them are done with their mission, some should move on. So they're going to be talking about that. The Parks Board is going to have a retreat in June, so that's nice. There's 15 members on the board, and this will be the first time, I think, in 2 years that we'll have an actual retreat. I only got appointed last November, so I've only been to 3 meetings, so this is just, it's great. Probably about half the board is actually new at this point, so it'll be a good opportunity for us to do that. The Big Branch Connector Survey is out there. Okay, so you've probably seen the signs if you're in the neighborhood about the Big Branch. The Big Branch, this goes into the multimodal bridge. It's the idea that eventually, ultimately, somehow, you connect the Crabtree Greenway, comes up and eventually connects, goes through Midtown, and then goes up to Cedar Hills. There's a lot of ifs. There's 6 segments to this project. The key one is the multimodal bridge. But this is about the connection from Crabtree up to
Like,
Town Park, or Waketown. I will tell you on this one, first of all, you wanna look at the survey, okay, take a look at it. June 4th, there is a meeting that you may wanna show up to and take a look at it. The people in the one sector where you come off like Anderson Hills and Anderson Forest, okay, that little section there off of 6 Forest. Those neighborhoods are not pleased with the options.
Yeah,
So-
the few people here tonight that,
What's that?
I'm gonna give them an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, that's the 1B. Oh, okay. And I drove through there today just because I want to get a feel for it. So it's kind of a big issue that you want to take a look at and you want to see, you'll want to go to that meeting, okay? And then finally, actually, the Quail Hollow street design or street redesign is in draft. It's on the site and the survey,
They're gonna meet next month.
the survey's in draft.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the survey's in draft. If you click on where it says there's a survey, it says this is in draft. So,
That's interesting. They approached me to come next June.
Good.
Yeah, I was amazed.
so,
We talked about Green Streets, which I thought Raleigh had forgotten about.
yeah, so there's some design aspects to it they're working on and actually it looks kind of interesting. So hopefully we'll see some progress there. Questions? No? Excellent. Thanks.
Yeah, Steve actually mentioned a couple things I just want to mention real quick. I know there's a couple of people here from Anderson Forest that I'm gonna give you an opportunity to just speak just a little bit. I just want to make sure I don't forget a few things. These are the postcards that are already sent out about the survey. You should have all gotten one of these. And there's signage all around the place about the survey. I encourage you all to take the survey. There's probably one and only chance that every voice is heard for where the pathway is gonna be. But the other thing I want to mention, Steve mentioned about the task force on commissions and boards. And I'm watching that one myself because we are meeting with the city on a separate task of our own to get CACs fully vested with the city. And we've been going at it for a year now. So I'm kind of interested to see where this task force goes to see. I suspect what they're gonna do is put more uniformity on the boards and commissions. But hopefully maybe they'll even drop a few, because like I said, there's 20. They've kind of grown over time and they're not, even though they all have liaisons to council, they're not really monitored well, and they just kind of like CAC kind of do our own thing. So it's good that they're taking a look at it. I'm kind of watching that myself. But the other thing that's important about council tomorrow, believe it or not, budget. The budget is finally going to get shown to the public at tomorrow's council meeting. It is already available on the city website. If you want to see what it looks like, you can go to the city budget department, either budget or what's the other one? There's 2, but it's on the city website. You can search for the budget for the upcoming year. And I'm kind of curious to see, they've only got a month to get it done and approved, which is kind of short, to see where they're going, if they're going to look at an increase in taxes again, or whether they're going to be somewhat austere. But pay attention to the budget. Public hearing for the budget, I think it's at the end of May or the first week of June. So it's gonna come up really quick. You're only getting one opportunity to speak. If you want to say something about the budget, you want to voice your opinion on the budget, you'll only get that one opportunity. And then council will be debating it shortly thereafter. So that's, I think, all I had to mention. Yes. So, people from Anderson Forest, would you like to introduce yourself and speak?
So you can see me.
That's what we're all about.
Thank you for letting me speak, and Steve, I'm glad you brought up the Big Branch Greenway connector. Is anybody familiar with it? I don't know how much.
I've walked it. I've walked the Crabtree Creek Greenway.
Okay, It's, well, as Steve said, the section in question is from the section that's gonna go from Six Forks Road to Waytown Drive. And back in August a year ago, a survey came out, and in that survey, they had 4 options. 3 options went through our backyards, privately owned backyards in Anderson Forest. And 1 option it was a street side option. And in that survey, 49% voted for the street side option. The next highest option was 24%. Then the next one was 16%, and the next one was 11%. Those 3, the city combined those statistics and said 51% want it on Anderson Forest properties. So fast forward to now, the city has come out there in phase 2 of public engagement, and they have come out with another survey that Steve and Larry mentioned. And in this survey, they basically said that this segment was not conclusive, even though it was 49%, and the next high is 24%, not conclusive, and put out another survey. This time there are 3 options. 1 option is on our private, in the backyards of 9 homes. The other 2 are street side. And this, when you take the survey, our concerns are that if you go take the survey and you read the description, it does not accurately describe our backyards. In the first place, it calls it the stream side option, which it is literally stream side. It's like 7 feet, set up anywhere from 7 to 25 feet from the stream, but it's in our backyards. We own in Anderson Forest, there's 9 homes that are affected, and we own the entire property all the way to the middle of the creek. So it's private property, it's not city property. And the fact that they call it stream side, it implies that it's this natural scenic area, and it's not. It's our backyards with swing sets and porches in our living spaces. It's also in where they want to put the greenway is in a riparian buffer. You know, if you know what a riparian buffer is, that's the buffer area. So 50 feet from the stream bank, and that is supposed to be a protected area. In the first 30, pardon?
It's no build, yeah. No.
Yeah, you're not supposed to build in it, and as residents, we have known that, and we know that we can't put an impervious surface in that area, but the city can. You know, that to us, that doesn't seem that doesn't seem fair. And if you take the survey, it talks about the number of large trees removed, and it says that there are no large trees removed on our properties. But there's a picture of our backyards, and it has all the trees and vegetation removed on the stream bank. So maybe the trees aren't considered large, but they're trees, and they've been there for some. You know, we've lived in the neighborhood for 31 years. They've been there for 31 years. Don't take them out. Also, if you look at the survey, it says in there, it says, this is an existing City of Raleigh sewer easement that provides a mostly cleared path, but does run across the property of 9 homes. We have a sewer easement in our backyards, and about a year and a half ago, we had, there was a sewer replacement project. So they came through and they cleared out 40 feet of trees and vegetation. So it is cleared out partly, but not all the way to the stream bank. But more importantly, this survey implies that they have a right to do this because there's a sewer easement. And that because they have a sewer easement does not mean they can build a greenway in a sewer easement. And they don't have a greenway easement in our backyards. So we just want people to understand what they're voting on when they vote.
What are the options on the latest survey? It sounded like, what are the options? You said there were 3 options?
So there are 3 options, and there's one on our properties, and then the other 2 are street side. And they go, and the 2 are, they go up Plantation.
So they kept the one original street side that had been built?
Yes, and then they added another one. They added another street side option.
Okay,
And I want to say that we don't really like the street side options either. I mean, we would rather this project not, this segment not go forward, and we'd rather ask the city to come up with a different plan. Because to get to this segment, you've got to cross 6 Forks Road. And that is gonna be, that is just not gonna be good. So.
I mean, one thing about the street sides is that, first of all, they're both dead ends, but neither has sidewalks. They're not wide roads, which means they're gonna have to encroach on front yards or whatever. So it really doesn't. The unfortunate thing about the survey, and this is why I sort of encourage going out to the meeting on June 4th, and I am speaking as a private citizen right now, is because of the 3 options, there is no option that says not this, something else. Okay, so those are the 3 options. In addition, there's also no comment section on this survey, on this particular survey. So the problem is, if you go to take the survey and you don't want any of the options, you can't take the survey. So
there's no D, none of the above.
there's no.
And the other problem is, and the reason Helen commented, and we made contact early on, was because if you just look at the statistics that are in the survey, and you're thinking environmentally, you would look at the one that says no trees removed, which is what I jumped on. And I said, that's probably the easiest and most environmentally friendly and neighborhood friendly. And that may not necessarily be the case. And I've offered to walk it with Helen to just make sure we're both talking about the same thing. And I gotta also tell you that it's not a new project. This project's been talked about for quite a while. And one of the first and simplest approaches to the Greenway was, you're right about having to cross major roads. Right now, the access to the Greenway, the only access in this area, is off of Wake Forest Road, right next to the car dealership. Has no parking. You go down the steps and you go onto the Greenway. And there is now, finally, another access point off Industrial Drive where you can go access it. But right now you can't park there. They've got to open up parking there to make that a more permanent, proper access point, not the one off of Wake Forest Road. But the simplest thing would have been to just run a greenway right along Wake Forest Road. But because the city builds right to the rights of ways, there was no feasible way to run the greenway right up along Wake Forest Road. That would have avoided the whole problem. It wouldn't have gone through any neighborhoods. It would have been much more friendly, it would have been more shaded, and not have to go sidewalk access. It would have been a shorter run to get to Waketown Drive. And unfortunately, it got ruled out almost immediately because they just didn't have enough right of way left on Wake Forest Road. And plus Wake Forest Road will eventually get redone. It's in the state's project list. So it leaves no other option other than try to go through the neighborhoods the best way you can. So as Helen's tried to stress, if you just look at the limited statistics that enable you to make a choice, they're a little deceiving. Pictures probably would have helped. So we'll see. I'll be at the open house. Helen, I'm sure will be at the open house. And maybe we can do something in between to see what we can do to maybe pick the proper choice.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to point out your assessment. I'm Calvin Kerber, I live in Anderson Park. No, that your assessment on the industrial drive is a recommendation that we try to make to them because, for one, you know, you can run down, they already have the infrastructure, sidewalks and bike paths that run through Wake Town across to Industrial Drive and down. And from us, she did not point out, I don't think I remember, but the city interestingly has an impervious surface interest. And our comment was when they took out all these trees, our landscaping, really, they have slowed, they increased flooding in our area because there's nothing to slow down the water going under 6 Forks Road. And coming down that hill, you know, we're down below Midtown. So all that water comes down. And after the sewer line went in replacement, we flooded 5 times last year. And of course, now they want to put an impervious surface there. We're going, you know, your pollution, your runoff, it's just going to be increased. So those are some, but anyway, the industrial drive seemed to be like a no-brainer. But
yeah, at one time it was the focus of it. The idea was to develop industrial drive, or supposed to be a pedestrian bridge going across the belt line to connect over to Wake Tech. And then that would go further into the neighborhoods on that side. So that was the big emphasis, to give people from Wake Tech an opportunity to bike across and head south.
Right.
And then, of course, use Industrial Drive. Now that whole section on one side of Industrial Drive is already been rezoned. It's all gonna be redeveloped.
right.
It'd be a very perfect place to put in a pathway and a greenway. But you just.
Well, and for us, it doesn't add, you're not adding impervious surface. It's already there.
Correct. Correct.
You know,
So I don't know how you enforce that to go backwards. That's the question, I guess.
it was sort of curious to me that they have this, they're not quite, it doesn't add up.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
They're saving a lot of money by using sidewalk systems. But I don't think going the other way is gonna cost them much either, because the developer will probably pay for the major portion of the greenway to get to the belt line. But then they got the same problem of how do you get across the belt line?
Yeah.
Either
Yeah,
under or over.
Right. Of course, we're worried about, you know, I would be interested to see on 6 Forks, from the traffic, where those wrecks are. We have had, I can't tell you, right there, that Shell station, I can't tell you how many wrecks we've had there. We've had a tractor trailer go through our wall at
Oh, really?
Into our
coming down that
neighborhood.
hill, it's fast. Oh, yeah. And we've had multiple wrecks there. And I'll be curious to see what the statistics are if they're there. How many, 6 Forks, how many are there? And
Well, your concerns are valid. That's the best way to put it. You know, the Shelley Lake project, the Ridgelock area in particular, is kind of the same thing, where they have a sewer project and they want to modify the greenway and replace a couple of bridges. And I haven't been back up there since. I need to get myself back up there to see how that all worked out. But it's very similar to what you would be going through.
right. We appreciate you trying to come and see. You know, we've invited anybody, so anybody can come look.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Steve, you said you drove by, you really need to come walk through our backyards to get a
Well,
real
I
picture.
thought about doing that, but you know, but I did, you know, when I drove those 2 roads, I was like, yeah, there's no way you can do, the street thing can't work.
Yeah.
I mean, it just can't work. The road's not wide enough.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just looking at, I did go around Anderson, I did make the mistake of coming out where there is no light on 6 Forks. You know,
That's a
so.
while.
You could have been with us.
I wouldn't do that, yeah, exactly. I wouldn't do that again.
I wanted to add that our stream bank is really fragile. It's already eroding. It was before the sewer.
Well, Steve and I have one in our neighborhood too, so I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah, and subsequent to the sewer project, it's really eroding. And the currents, when we have water, when we have a water event up above us in North Hills, the currents in that thing, they're going right behind the house, and the water comes right up to my deck, which is what you think, 15 feet above the creek at least. So you've got that deep water. It comes up to my deck, and I have had neighbors, metal play sets from way down the street end up in my yard. So those currents are
Oh, yeah.
dangerous. And what we are is we're 12 feet above, the street level is 12 feet above us. And so the water, will need a ramp that is probably 120 feet long to get down the stream bank into our area based on requirements for a ramp. And somebody could come over that hill and not know that downstream from them is going to be currents that are going that fast. And they immediately go one house down from ours into a culvert under 6 Forks Road. And I have seen trees stuck in that culvert, much less people. And I do think I wouldn't want to be responsible for the danger to some people's lives if they didn't know that water was that swift and they were coming.
Well, that's why it's very unusual when you say your property ends in the middle of the stream. That's unusual because usually that stream is a drainage easement and it's maintained by the city. It's the same issue we have here. When we watch boulders go from, our area all the way down to the other, Eastgate Park, they sit at the mouth of Eastgate Park. So.
And the problem is when it's up high, is that you could have a water event up above us and everything's rushing past in that stream. And an hour later, it can be a sunny day, it can be beautiful, and somebody might come by on a bike and go down into that water, and it is scary, it boils, it's scary.
Sounds like a stormwater issue too.
Yeah, I'm not sure that our plats show our property goes to the middle of the creek. Of course,
Right,
that creek's moving, so I don't know what that means.
It's scary.
And ours get wider and wider. So. Okay, well, I appreciate you coming out and welcome you back. Nick Barr was supposed to be here next month. Not sure now if he's coming or not. So he's on the agenda for next month. So if it's nice for a month, maybe he'll come.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, well, enjoy your Memorial weekend and thanks for coming.
See you everyone.